Hey, welcome back to the podcast known as Behind the Badge. My name is Todd Baxter. I'm the sheriff of Monroe County. I'm joined by two fine deputies of our drone unit, and we're going to talk about counter drones today and introduce that to the public a little bit more in detail. With that being said, we got the commander of our drone unit, not our counter drone unit. We're developing that, but our drone unit. And you've done an incredible job building this team out, building the skills and capabilities. It's just great to have you here. And people are going to be a little confused about drones and counter drones. So we want to start out with the drone program. And so if you guys don't mind introducing yourself real quick and the commander of the drone unit and how many drones we might have and what we're doing with the drones right now.
Sure. My name is Matthew Whiting. My full-time assignment is part of the Unmanned Aircraft Systems program, the drone program. And we have a total of 25 aircraft currently, 13 pilots. We cover first platoon, second platoon, third platoon, all hours of the day,
Right.
all shifts. East side, west side, north, south. We assist every agency inside of Monroe County. We'll go outside. Doesn't matter the discipline. The technology we have is so varied from consumer grade up to enterprise level. Give me a mission and we'll try to attack it the best way we can.
Any of your drones able to carry payloads?
We do have the ability of carrying payloads, always operating within the rules and the confines of the Federal Aviation Administration. We actually did some training last month with local fire department and doing some drop deployment of life preservers and then actually bringing people that were in ice water back up to shore.
That's amazing. That's pretty cool. It's amazing how this technology has evolved over just the last few years here at the sheriff's office. And again, I'll give you credit and the rest of the team. It's just been utterly amazing. And that's the reason you're not on the bomb squad right there. We all would have been bad.
Yeah.
It's your coffee mug on your microphone.
Won't be trying out for that unit anytime soon.
And I've been talking a lot about counter drones. So we got a prolific drone team, probably one of the best around, and that's my challenge to you: stay the best, and never get too big, for our britches, but also never stop innovating. But now the counter drone, we see what's going on in Ukraine, and we see what's going on in the Middle East right now. And I've been saying for a while, it's only a matter of time here in America, right? And the PGA obviously brought that to us. We'll talk more about that, but I wanted a drone operator to do a research project, and that's where you come in, deputy. About quick introduction of yourself, your experience here at the sheriff's office, and then maybe just a little bit about the research project that you did for us.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Brody Egan, and currently assigned to work day shift in C-Zone out on the west side of the county, and was hired in 2018 to work in the jail. Then shortly thereafter got onto road, and really just been interested in the drone program. As Matt Whiting and a couple other folks started up back in 2017, it's been a robust program and really something I wanted to be a part of at some point. And it was great that we had the opportunity to conduct a study like this. It gives us an opportunity to look into things as far as emerging threats here in the United States, but also look elsewhere at what's going on. It was a long 3 months of a lot of interviews and taking a lot of information and synthesizing it down to see what we can do and can't do. And we learned a lot from it. So excited about it.
Yeah, I can't wait to dig into it and share what you did, the research you did in the interviews, but the literature reviews and developing some great relationships across the state and across the nation. Hopefully people that can help us out. Just take another step back towards the drone team. You mentioned you have 20 some drones, right?
Yes, sir.
Operators 24/7 able to go. And pretty soon, we're going to be really soon, drone as first responder. You want to talk a little bit about that before we get into the counter drone part of this program?
Pretty soon, probably within the next month, we'll be breaking ground for actually install of our drone as a first responder hardware. Currently, we're in a temporary drone as a first responder program. So I actually have 2 deputies that are actually deploying right now, and we're doing some active calls for service flying.
That's awesome. Amazing.
This is all being done in the Henrietta business area at this time right now.
Right.
And right now we have 1 site set up, and we will be hoping to look to expand that so long as the calls for service justify the use of it.
And that's the idea. You got a hot call coming to 911. You can launch a drone. You don't have to take an operator and an observer and drive to the scene. You can launch it from a fixed point to the scene if it's within the radius of the drone's capability.
Correct. So the technology we have, it does operate not only on the radio frequency side, but it also has a cellular backbone. So we're really now only limited to the distance, how far a battery can last us. So having the robust program we have of our field deploy,
Right.
we can augment that drone as a first responder program by extending that range a little bit further, by then, instead of sending people immediately to the scene to get an aircraft in the air, maybe they're going to the scene to be the
First
support for the
responders.
aircraft that's already in the air.
Right.
So instead of having to fly back, we can round robin right off the scene.
That's
So
amazing.
it's going to drastically reduce response times, increase effectiveness of our UAS in the area.
And I think one of the things that the public needs to be aware of is as you built this program out, and change is a difficult thing, right? There's books written on change models. You were able to develop such a great relationship with the FAA, right? That there, it seemed from my point of view, and I know you did a lot of work, but behind the scenes, it seemed almost like seamless to do a drone as first responder. But think about the risk there. You're launching a drone from a secondary site without an immediate observer. And that's all based on the relationship you guys were able to develop and doing it the right way. Your drone program was done the right way according to the federal government. And I think there's some trust there, Bill, right?
Yeah, so our initial agreements with the Federal Aviation Administration go back to 2018. And our working with the local air traffic controller created the ability to have reduced limitations that the general public or other public safety agencies have. So we were able to get some forgivenesses written into our agreements, and then also working on the backs of other agencies that are running drone as a first responder. New York City, Oklahoma City, Las Vegas Metro, using the work that they have done has helped us, along with our track record, to be able to get agreements to allow us to do true drone as a first responder missions.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's a force multiplier for us, almost second to none. I mean, your drones are really, really cool and have changed a lot of the way we do police work. Missing persons, a drone and a canine, I never expected that. The combination of those two working together has been utterly incredible, right? Now drone as first responder is really going to change that whole paradigm of who's on scene first, that overwatch, that even slow deputies down going to a call, right? You can get on scene to a hot call and realize it might not be so hot, and we can just slow people down and be safer getting there.
Correct.
Yeah, it's amazing. So then we took that wonderful program you guys are developing, and I always wanted to be, as you know, very cautious not to be offensive to the drone program, because now we're talking about what are we going to do with drones that are bad guys are using drones? What are we going to do out there in the public if bad guys start using them for criminality, or bad guys start using them for terrorism? As we see across the world, it's occurring almost every day. And that's where we brought you on there, Dep. Like, go research this for me. We released you, if you will, for a couple of months. Was it 2 months?
I think it was end of September into January 1st.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, basically start out with a SWOT analysis. What's our strengths here as local law enforcement? What's our weaknesses? And what's our opportunities, and what's our threats in front of us? And you came up with a great comprehensive research project. We're researching more and more every day, because, the threat doesn't end. But this is a great research project. And I thought you did an incredible job just laying the land. What's going on? What do we need? And we're using this right now. We're at Albany last week now, talking to DCGS. We're going to Albany again this month to talk to Homeland Security and trying to plant the seed of what do we need? Well, we can't do that without research. So how about real quick, what'd you do in the research project? You get asked that question all the time. And then we'll go over the SWOT part of it, if you don't mind.
Right. So that pretty much started with the relationships that Matt and other folks in our drone unit built, the relationships they've had with the FAA and Federal Air Marshal Service, and kind of dates back to putting counter UAS on the radar, so to speak, is the success we had at the PGA in 2023. We can get in that in a minute here, but then additionally at air shows is what else is out there in the skies that may cause us to I guess inhibit our mission, or what is out there and what are they going to do. So really the start of this, kind of quarterbacked off of those relationships. And I reached out to those folks and asked for just a simple conversation. Hey, I was tasked by the sheriff of Monroe County to look into things all counter UAS. So what do you got for me? And it just kind of spiderweb from there to all the connections I've built. I mean, I talked to folks from FBI, DOJ, private partners such as New Air, NIPA, and, kind of just led into all these other agencies that are already kind of thinking about the same thing. But what can they do? What can't they do as far as the federal law goes?
Right. And that was a big hurdle right there that we got to make sure we educate the public. Until December of this past year, we had no capabilities legally to take a drone out of the sky.
Correct.
Let alone the technology or the ability. And that passed. Why don't we just
Yes.
jump right in right there? So,
Sure.
so we fought for this law to get changed at the federal level. You were looking at multiple different ones. We're ready to do our champion down in
Right.
Washington, knocking on doors, and then it became a dream come true, if you will, in this world of counter drone. Quick introduction of that law that got passed.
Yes. So it really started with kind of the President Trump's executive order back in June of 2025, restoring American sovereignty to skies. He basically said we need to take over control of our skies when drones are now the emerging threat. Like it was already established at the federal government level. This is the thing. And so once that was passed, now it put pressure on Congress and other federal agencies to establish training and coordination of detection softwares and capabilities, which really led into, okay, we're gearing up for that because the federal government said so.
Right.
Now, what are we going to have in order to combat that? And that's the National Defense Authorization Act, which was passed in December of this past year. It's just essentially just a defense appropriations bill. It says, hey, we're the federal government. This is how much we're going to spend on X, products or anything to do with, any branch of the government. And really what came about that was an inclusion of the Safer Skies Act, which establishes the capabilities for state, local, territorial, and tribal agencies to be able to use detection capabilities and ultimately mitigation once you're approved and have the training to do so.
Yeah, and that's the next hurdle for us, really, is and that's why we did this research. We want to be ready when the federal government says you're able to come now to training and possibly mitigate to get certified, if you will. And we want to make sure we're shovel ready for that, right? This tree should have been planted 20 years ago, but we're planting it today at least and be as ready as possible. And going back to the PGA, and you guys did a phenomenal job there. We had detection capability at the PGA championship.
We did.
Yeah.
Partnered with Federal Air Marshal Service.
Yep.
They brought in their equipment, so they were able to give us detection in a specified radius around the PGA location. And they were able to identify where aircraft were taking off and landing, so much so they knew every time we spun the props on our aircraft to go up in the air, and they were grabbing anything that went up. So we didn't have any rules to say no one could fly in the area.
Right.
We tried to get a temporary flight restriction.
Tried many times.
It just was it was not going to happen.
Right.
But what we did was we still used the Federal Air Marshal Service to bring the technology in, so we had an awareness of what was flying around the area.
And we actually asked a couple operators to land their craft, right?
We had multiple instances of people taking off and landing, and we utilized people that were working the air show, and we utilized our UAS teams that were actually doing overwatch, traffic monitoring, to try and identify those operators on the ground. So what we're seeing here, this was aircraft detected by the Federal Air Marshal Service. And then in conjunction with the investigation over the course of a few days, we were able to identify that individual based off of future launches and seeing where they took off from. So we were able to make contact with them. And then our investigation was handed off to the federal side, and they did do a prosecution on this case.
Yeah, and just so the public knows, not only these incredible shots, this is what a drone could do for you. No one gets a picture above the blimp looking down on a fairway, but this is actually illegal, what this operator was doing, and it turned out to be a felony that he was convicted for. And it could be very dangerous. You got the Goodyear blimp over a crowd of 100,000 people being buzzed. All it takes is one mistake to make a tragedy happen.
So the aircraft that he was flying and the airspace he was in, the drone operator was afforded a 400-foot altitude.
Right.
This blimp here is traveling at 12 to 1,400 feet, depending on air currents. That's how high they are up in the air. So that drone is even higher, getting these shots. So sometimes 4 times as high as their legal allowed.
And think about the capability of a drone. People wouldn't expect the drone to be that high in the sky.
Yep.
Phenomenal shots, though, no? Great pictures. I remember seeing them for the first time. I'm like,
great golf course.
It's a good-looking picture. Yeah, great golf course. Getting ready for another tournament, hopefully, really soon.
That's right. I think 2035.
Yeah, we're excited about that. So this is the emergency. So we, as Matt said, we got the ability with our federal partners to detect, right, and find the operators and ask them to the ground. But what do we do if someone refuses to? What do we do? And in my world, not paranoia, but prepared. What do we do if someone starts putting hand grenades on drones and flying over police stations, or putting bad stuff on drones and flying over water treatment plants? And our capability is pretty limited. We train with our SWAT teams of different mitigations. God forbid, we have to use those, but there's technology out to use. But let's just go back to your research project.
Sure.
What were the emerging threats? I mean, I keep on saying that, but what's research say that the emerging threats in the American population is from nefarious use of drones?
Really, one of the emerging threats here, I'm glad you pulled that up, was, we just had an incident in New York State here locally at Marcy Correctional Facility where contraband was brought in via drone, and the folks there, either detected it through whatever means and were able to figure it out after the fact, what they brought in. I think it was some knives, some contraband as far as drugs go, and cell phone, all stuff that obviously damages, the relationships inside the jail via, assaults on inmates or other folks. So I think it's just important to know that this is happening, and it's definitely, local. We saw it out in South Carolina and Georgia Department of Corrections, as well as the feds. They have jails that have had incidences of contraband deliveries into their yards. Thankfully we don't have that here in Monroe County, but certainly something to think about. They can deliver packages like that, and also just be used in any sort of nefarious use, right?
Yeah.
You could arm them. I've seen videos of that, people, attaching firearms to it, which obviously is illegal through the federal government as is, but it's not going to stop people from doing it, right? So additionally,
I wish criminals followed the law. They'd make life a lot easier.
Right. We'd be out of a job.
Good thing.
So then additionally, we see, just when in Ukraine and Russia, they're just using it against, each other, right? In the battlefield there, they're flying them into munitions. There's a couple operations that have been conducted where they, damage, any sort of airfield or, the assets that they have there. Right. So it's definitely concerning.
And you guys worked hard at the last air show also with the same type of just trying to keep this airspace secure, right?
Right.
For the F-16s.
So at the air show, we did have a temporary flight restriction, so there was a TFR in effect. And growing upon the air show in 24, the PGA, growing upon those instances, we not only had that detection equipment from the Federal Air Marshal Service, but we designated teams to go and identify the operator. So Brody was part of one of the teams to go and actually make contact with these operators. We did an ad hoc way of it in the PGA. We didn't necessarily understand we needed to dedicate people to do it. When we dedicated on the last air show side, having knowledgeable people going and interacting with people, knowing what questions to ask, and thinking, if I were going to fly a drone, where would I go and launch from? So, that was the start of trying to identify what's in the airspace and then make contact with those operators and find out what was the intent. Was it a looky-loo situation? Was it a nefarious? Was it just not knowing what to do?
Ignorance of the law or the temporarily, restriction. So what do we do next? So if we have a terrorist that wants to use a store-grade drone against the American population, that's where we're going next, right? That we now have the ability by law. Now we're waiting for the FAA or the federal government, to catch up with the training. And obviously they're putting a lot of resources in. The FIFA coming but what's next though? So we go to school, we get certified. You guys are brilliant. You go get certified. The FAA approves you, and then we buy the technology that'll allow us to do some of these operations, and that's detect, which we always want to be able to do, like we've been doing, but do it on our own, and then maybe mitigate.
Right. Yeah, it's important to think about counter UAS. We always talk about our capabilities on the drone side of things, our drone unit, but the other side of that coin is the counter UAS. It's detect, track, identify, and eventually mitigate if necessary. And after talking to all the interviews from the federal folks that I talked to and other agencies, really the closest to 100% mitigation is really just getting to the pilot. They've had a lot of success with just having great detection equipment that can see all different manufacturers of drones, that are flying out there, and really just knowing what's out there so it doesn't inhibit their response, but also just knowing, if they are flying in a temporary flight restriction, obviously the federal government's going to want to know about that. And they've actually just released a statement in the last couple of weeks about how they're going to start amping up the penalties for flying in restricted airspace. So it's something they're really taking seriously now. And I think, hopefully people, they have the resources out there. It's on the FAA website, Drone Zone. There's a couple other websites out there that can really tell you what you can and cannot do, when you have to register drones. So the information is out there. We just encourage the public to look at it before you fly, right? You know, you go and buy something at Walmart, just make sure you're following the laws, right?
Yeah. And that's a great point. I'm assuming you both are drone operators on off duty, or you guys, or do you get enough of it at work?
I do enough at work.
Yeah, do enough at work.
We do
it's kind of like making
here.
pizzas. No one goes home and has a pizza if you make pizzas for a living.
Right.
But you said the other day, an interview we were doing, look, we love drone operators. It's a great technology. Just use it right. And if you don't understand, go on the website and get educated, so enforcement doesn't have to become that. And everybody we make contact on would-be enforcement is usually compliant. They're perfectly fun to work with. They're nice people. And so we're not anti-drone by any means.
No. And, the federal government has only so much resources.
Right.
They're reliant upon the local government to make those contacts of, this aircraft was operating unsafely over here.
Right.
If they're not getting the information, they're not able to actually do any prosecutions, if you will.
Right.
So if we're able to do that firsthand education and that enforcement, if you will, that could save us a whole lot of work in the back end if something were to happen in the future.
And you nailed it. That first education is probably the most important thing we do. And as Brody was saying, let's get to that website. Let's understand the rules. If you're flying a drone, there's some basic rules. There's some basic certification you might have to go through if you're doing it for business. And
sure.
And again, we're not out proactively looking for those, but if there's a temporary fly restriction, we'd rather not have to talk to anybody. We'd rather people understand the rules of the road, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And police your own, right?
Yeah. It's important to note too that right now there's just not much teeth that we can sink into enforcement behind unauthorized drone flights. Right. This is something that we would try to make contact with the pilot right now, and then we would forward that information, at a later date to the folks that can actually do something. So
when we talked about federal law changing, we're very happy in December that got changed for us to help now move forward with the mitigation should we need. But now there's also New York State law being proposed that we're championing as New York State Sheriff's Association. You guys educate me on those to make sure we're educated. These are good laws and give us a little more teeth at the state level as opposed to relying on our federal partners if someone's using a drone in a bad way. That's pretty cool. Listen, let's go back to the research project. I just wanted to educate the public of the podcast. There is a threat out there. This ain't about paranoia. This is about being prepared. I think as a sheriff's office, we should be shovel ready. So when the federal government's ready to give us the capability, which comes with training and certification, and of course, purchasing of different equipment. Right now, we have some abilities to take a drone out of the sky. We just haven't really gone to the next level. And I think anybody would agree we need to be in that position should there be a terrorist attack. People are expecting us to be able to take care of it because we can't rely on our federal partners to be everything to everybody. They're just not designed to do that. Anything you want to add to your research project?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to reiterate that, really the purpose of building up our counter-UAS side of things is really an airspace awareness. We want to know what's out there. For us, obviously our drone as first responder program's kicking off here shortly. And, just to be able to be that force multiplier when, the federal government isn't able to be there at all times, right? Like they do have access to a lot of funding, a lot of cool equipment, but they can't be here when we need them now.
Right.
Not always, obviously we have a few pre-planned events that we do focus the counter-UAS side of things on with air shows, parades, et cetera.
Right.
But we really want to be able to get ahead of this because the threat is there. It's just not, it's a matter of, when, not if.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Unfortunately.
You nailed it.
But yeah, I mean, the interviews were extensive and I learned a lot. And I think it's important that, going forward, building off the relationship we had with all these folks to really see what technology is out there, what works, what doesn't. And, we're really excited about it.
And I was surprised. Shouldn't be surprised, but I was surprised by your research project, how much the state police, New York State Police are already leaning forward in this subject and getting some funding from the state. And that's what we said. We want to be next in line as the Monroe County Sheriff's, not to be egotistical, but our job is to be forward leaning and we're going to be as forward leaning on this and thus do research that you gave us to set the table for us to be in that arena. I cut you off, I think.
No. So this counter UAS program, it's the word counter in there. It's not just the taking out of the aircraft that are in the air. From my perspective, I want to see every aircraft that's up in the air, so it's less of a problem for any aircraft that we fly.
Right.
It's providing that service to the pilots that I have, to the DFR pilots, to the citizens, so that we know that it's a safe airspace for us to fly in. Our DFR program is a no visual observer beyond visual line of sight. So there is no one watching that aircraft.
Right.
That's the agreement that we have with the FAA. And, we rely upon the aircraft to know what's in the air. It would be great to be able to say we have great situational awareness on the aircraft, and then be able to just add another layer of safety there.
And there's technologies out that allow us to do that, and why not have them on hand? Yeah, just go back to a real quick story. Barricaded gunman, a few years ago, I forget now, in one of the P towns, it might have been Pittsford or Parrington, and SWAT team's on scene, drones are on scene, drones giving overwatch to the SWAT team, and all of a sudden, in that scenario, the bad guy launched a drone, and I scratched my head. We got drone bots possibly going. He's trying to knock our drone, your drone, if you will, out of the sky.
Mine.
Yeah, your drone. Yeah, I don't tell that story enough. I mean, that's how simple this is. That a bad guy and a barricaded gunman that we do several times a year, right? We surround, we isolate, we negotiate, and we get them out. We were 100% almost in that process, except when he starts flowing drones at our drones. Like, well, this is a new twist on this story.
And the more I thought about it, I went, this is like 3-dimensional battleship, if you will. So I had to put that mindset of, it's not just I can see it going in the same path, but there was another plane that I wasn't thinking about.
Yeah.
But it was another. He knew we were there, and he was trying to find out where our resources were.
Right.
So thankfully, his batteries didn't last as long as our batteries did, and he quickly lost interest.
Sort of the budget people note that we buy good batteries, and we need more. So
do need more, sir.
I know. I never stop getting your requests, and keep them coming. I truly believe in the drone program. We've seen the other day in the city of Rochester, a guy was willing to kill a cop, and luckily a drone found him before a cop had to walk upon him. And that's what the technology is for. A missing kid. And we're just taking it to the next level. Just be prepared, of the emerging threats in front of us. So, hey, till next week, folks. I hope you learned a little bit here about drones and counter drones and how brilliant these guys are. And I'm really appreciative of both you and the whole team and what you guys have created. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Till next week, be safe.